Every individual child in Western nations that comes into existence within its lifetime campaign has a mandatory blood type test that is administered to them when they are born. Every Rh negative star child that is born is medically recorded into a government-owned electronic database. Anytime you visit an emergency room within a government-run hospital or your very own family physician, your medical history is logged into the system under your health card identification number, thereby making it very easy for groups to find and track all Rh negative individuals by accessing this electronic database. The ruling Rh positive Homo sapiens of this educational artificial reality training habitat that control this system of genetic war being waged against us view we Rh negative celestial star seeds as an invasive species to their environment, and they see us as no more than lab rats, perfect candidates for trauma-based mind control and other secret experimental programs. While there are mainstream researchers conducting studies on rhesus negative blood types, most of these studies have been embargoed from the general public for many years. Due to the channels that direct the flow of information being owned and controlled by this oligarchy, the researchers and the foundations privately funding the diligent and systematic inquiry and investigations into our species in order to discover or revise facts, theories, and applications are able to freely access this information with the deliberate intent that we Rh negatives ourselves, as well as the general public, will always be misinformed when it comes to the latest scientific and medical information, and to prevent us from knowing what the implications of this research will have on we Rh negatives as a species. Within this worldwide system of speciesism, we Rh negative celestial star seeds are considered to be worth more dead than we are worth alive, as we possess rare DNA that many genetic engineers and researchers are interested in. Rh negative genetic tissues are constantly in high demand when it comes to black market biological organ cells, and because of this, many of us are individually targeted by those that profit from the sales of our genetic material throughout the underground economy. Targeted Rh negative individuals are those sisters and brothers of our tribe whom through overt and covert means are illegally harassed, tortured, experimented on, mind controlled, gang stalked, monitored through electronic surveillance, and are outright murdered by organized groups of persons, typically governments and military intelligence agencies. The most frequent form of overt targeting that we Rh negatives encounter is non-consensual experimentation for military research and development. As targeted individuals, there are a variety of measures and clandestine ways that international level intelligence agencies designate we Rh negatives for harassment and persecution under the guise of them protecting government communications networks and information systems. There are countless businesses and agents living amongst we Rh negatives that are tasked with continuously observing our actions, both online and offline, and are reporting data on our status to intelligence agencies. These agents typically work government jobs that hold some form of authority over the general public. No matter how hard many of us may try, the constant struggle to get ahead in life, more oftentimes than not, is due to the fact that we Rh negatives actively have businesses and agents working collaboratively against us and our efforts. For example, many of us may be down and out financially, and in turn, have to seek forms of government assistance, but we are repeatedly declined from receiving aid, benefits, and other resources that would ensure that we have stable, adequate lodging and food for sustenance. This is always a ploy by intelligence agencies to drive we Rh negative eternal warriors into a low vibrational state of distress, despair, and depression that can eventually result in forcing us to self-destruct by committing suicide. Many sisters and brothers of our star tribe suffer from depression because our lives have been purposely sabotaged. And no matter how hard those of us make attempts to receive assistance through mental health services, it gets us absolutely nowhere. It is important for us to develop a systems thinking perspective in understanding that these things are happening to us deliberately as a strategic maneuver perpetrated by our enemies in this genetic war, who see us as a direct threat to their genetic survival, and who only seek to destroy our species out of fear of their own genetic annihilation. The creatures who run these programs believe that we Rh negative beings are prime candidates for trauma-based mind control due to our genetic memories. This is partly why all of the major political figures and other prominent persons are all Rh negative beings. The presidents and prime ministers of Western nations are merely prompted and taken charge of by shadowy power brokers behind the scenes of world governments. These capstone groups utilize Rh negative slaves to infiltrate positions of power in order to have full control of the most powerful and influential countries. Some of us Rh negatives have been used as geopolitical and entertainment industrial complex puppets by the interplanetary corporate conglomerate empire to deceive the masses and to manufacture public consent to further their goal of world domination, as well as to demonize we Rh negatives, in order to convince the dominant Rh positive population to mistakenly blame the ills of their society on our species, so that their attention is never focused on those puppet masters lurking behind the scenes. The claim that we Rh negatives cannot be cloned is completely false. On the contrary, we Rh negatives are preferred test subjects that are sought out for cloning purposes due to the malleability of our genetics. Mononuclear reproduction is a process that utilizes micro-extraction and implantation equipment that takes the unfertilized egg from an ovulating female, then implants the nucleus of the donor cell taken from a blood sample or skin scraping. That cell, with its Rh negative genetic material intact, becomes an embryo and develops into a living being. The base of operations located underneath Archuleta Mesa on the Colorado border near the town of Dulce, New Mexico, was where one of the heaviest mononuclear reproduction facilities were once located. Many of we Rh negatives have suffered excruciatingly painful medical experiments through captive breeding and genetic manipulation programs, and were then dismissively disposed of with a needle to the heart or a bullet to the back of the head. Our biological organs and genetic tissue samples would then be collected and sent to private institutions, along with the reports of all the grisly surgical operations that were performed, in order for the board of directors of the interplanetary corporate conglomerate to be up to date on all of the latest findings. In developing a systems thinking perspective for our survival and fitness, and to remain strategically aware for emergencies on the battlefield, we should look historically at what has been secretly done to our tribe for centuries, and realize that our enemies continue their unethical research today and are doing it on an even far greater scale than ever before. Horrifying and beastly medical experiments funded by wealthy families and organizations that comprise the interplanetary corporate conglomerate are being conducted on we Rh negatives today. Power brokers, politicians, criminals, and black ops mercenaries all have one thing in common. They are all working together to bring about the destruction of we Rh negative celestial starseeds. Our enemies are devoid of empathy, lacking moral values and generative principles, as they enjoy ensnaring us into negativity to feed their own ego through a use of emotional, physical, and psychological abuse. Those who play with fire oftentimes throw light on the situation. This is a battle that has been fated for millennia. We all know what comes next. We must make a decision now to put the liberation of our species first by becoming masters of our own fate, raising our swords in defense as the eternal warriors that we are, and putting an end to this reign of terror being waged against our tribe. Or we will surely be hunted down one by one, and face getting ourselves caught in the flames as the fires of this genetic war swallow we Rh negative celestial starseeds and this sacred land of our sister Earth forever.